Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. So I don't know if we should take the white smoke and blow it back down the stack or just, keep things as they are.
I've seen mixed stories on this new Pope Leo XIV. Some people are saying that he's a moderate, that he has a traditional stance on things like life, and also he's a traditionalist on gay marriage and things like that. But they say he's a kind of an open borders guy, Bill.
They say he's a lot of open borders there. And, there was an exchange he did with J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance did a statement back in the early part of the year where he made a statement that, there's a hierarchy in the Christian faith that has been kind of blown aside where, it's, God first, family, and on down the line, which, I couldn't give you the exact place in the Bible where it is, but I do know I was brought up believing that too. It's, God, wife, family, it goes in that succinction. But apparently he attacked Vance on that thing, going, no, Jesus doesn't have any hierarchy.
Prevost did. You're saying this new Pope made a comment.
Yes, he did. He's the one that made the comment that sat there and said, no. Jesus does not have any order for you to hold things.
Well, if that's the case, why do they have popes in the church?
Right.
They have a hierarchy in what he's involved with. I mean, I'm a Roman Catholic, and let me tell you, I hope for this man. We hear a lot of stories and a lot of rumors. I was listening to a talk show before we started, and the guy also who did the show is a Catholic, and he was talking kind of pessimistically about this guy's choice. And he implied, by the way, and there's some concern here, that it was kind of predetermined that Francis set this guy up to be his successor, and that the other cardinals knew about this.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing that I got there, they even in mainstream media, liberal media, they're going, we have a new woke pope, as they were bragging about it. And that's where I got the J.D. Vance story, is from that. I'm going like, okay, now this is a horse of a different color.
Yeah. Now,
I'm not Catholic, so, I am not even going to attest that I follow, things there closely. As a matter of fact, I will even sit there and say, if you want to look at Christians in the world, don't hold a candle to me to say there's the model Christian, because that's one thing I am not even close to. I'm a religious man. I'm a God-fearing man, but, am I, Bible text perfect?
Well,
absolutely not.
Bill, I think everybody will agree that even if you're not Catholic, you'll agree that when a pope has a certain amount of influence on the world, even to the non-Catholic world, the pope, because of his position, because of his microphone, because of where he sits, he can influence how things go and how people feel. Go ahead.
Right. Now, he's got dual citizenship. He's Peruvian. He's from Peru.
Yeah, Peru and also the U.S.
Okay, but now they have borders in Peru, right?
Of course they do. Yeah, absolutely.
They have borders in Mexico, right?
They have borders in the Vatican.
Yeah. So, I got a deal for them. You know what? You want us to take down our walls in America. We'll do it when you take down the Vatican walls.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't hold your breath, Bill. They'll have some reason why that won't happen. But
then he better not hold his breath, because I'm sorry, because we take down our borders, we are nothing.
It's one thing to be outspoken as an aide, and at the time he was an aide to Pope Francis. I think his most recent position, and this I found kind of interesting too. I think in his most recent position, he was stationed in the Vatican. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he had to do any traveling around the world to find this cardinal. They talk about him from being from Chicago. He was born in Chicago, but he was I believe, a bishop in Peru, like you said. and he's only been a cardinal since 2023. So, he was appointed by Pope Francis. And so he's kind of been Pope Francis's right-hand guy. Look here's how I feel, Bill. Let's give him some time. People say certain things when they're on the sidelines and do other things when they're actually in the game. You know, it's easy to stand on the sideline and have an opinion, but when you are suddenly the quarterback, okay, maybe you might have a different approach. Maybe he's going to have a more moderate position on his, but you know, that's okay. The other thing is this, folks, it's 2025, and I believe, personally, I'm comfortable believing in the Catholic faith. Okay, I'm comfortable. That's how I've been brought up. I go to church in the Catholic Church. It's a Christian faith, and I pray to God. But I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you get a pope in there and he's not the kind of guy that I want to be in that position, I'm not going to leave anything. You know, my father used to say, you don't fix things by leaving. You know, you can't fix something by leaving that something. You have to stay and fix it. So you can object to this guy, and you can still go to church. And he's also, I talked about the influence he has, but also he doesn't make decisions on borders. And, you know, Trump is going to go, thank you very much, Your Eminence. And he's going to go back to doing exactly what he has to do for our country. You know, and President Trump, by the way, is not a stranger to people attacking him. So if this Pope, you know, gets in the conga line of liberals that attacks President Trump, it'll be like water off a duck's back. You know? So I don't think there was a time, Bill, maybe 100 years ago, when if a Pope said something, it carried much more political weight around the world. Oh, the Pope said you shouldn't do that. Well, maybe we shouldn't do that. You know, we'll turn the Catholics off. Nowadays, the Catholics can love their faith, but also realize there's a separation between church and state. You stay on your side, we'll stay on our side, you know? Don't tell us how to run our country.
Right.
Anyway, Pope Francis, I mean, there was no one more liberal than that guy.
Right.
And we got through it. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, you know, and I'm sitting there going, again, I am not, you know, the most holiest of holy people, but, you know, when you go to the Bible, you go to Acts 17:26, Paul says God's determined the time set for them and the exact places where they should live. In other words, God defined, you know, countries and places where people should be. There was a certain separation and, you know, a set of boundaries. So why are we different now?
Well, didn't Jesus say, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's even Jesus acknowledged, hey, listen, stay out of that political realm.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to Genesis, where to Abraham, God promised, you know, that he would have, you know, well, how did it go? He promised that he would establish boundaries and he would have certain, you know, territories. So, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but it is in the Bible. So when you got a person that's holy, that should know the Bible, whether it be, you know, the modern King James or the Catholic Bible.
Oh, I have a good friend of mine down in Florida who's probably listening right now who will, we should get him as a guest. He's
going to tear me apart in this, you know.
Yeah, he's going to tear us both apart. But we should get him as a guest sometimes and have him talk about, you know, faith and government and God's positions on those things. He will have the verse on his fingertips.
Well, he's got a good memory. I know that there's a Deuteronomy.
I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah. I mean, it urges people to love those
Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it urges you to love those who are foreigners. It doesn't say take down your walls or blur the lines there. But
I mean, I think this guy kind of believes that anybody who wants to walk into any country anywhere should be able to do so. because it's like that old song, this land is your land, this land is my land. And he kind of believes that. Of course, that song was written by a socialist, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. So you know what? We're taking things and misinterpreting true meanings of things that have been etched in stone by a burning bush in West Texas or somewhere overseas for thousands of years. So,
And you have to also understand that these clergymen, and they're good men. I mean, they devote their life to God. They're just, I think, even in Pope Francis's case, although I don't know, there was something about Pope Francis that I never connected with. It was almost like there was what you saw, and then there was something behind the scenes that made me wonder how he got to where he was, and that's because in my lifetime he was the first pope ever to be appointed to actually take a living pope and to remove him from the position,
right,
and then take this guy and put him in. See, that was something that wasn't even considered when I was a kid. For Pope Pius, Pope John the 23rd, Pope Paul the 6th, all these guys that have been popes in my lifetime, they got into their job because the pope before them died. Excuse me, but they died.
Croaked.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't. Sorry about that. But that's how it was done. All of a sudden, this guy comes along, Pope Benedict's in good health, and someone along the line says, "No, I don't know about this Pope Benedict. He's way too conservative, and I don't know. We got to get somebody in there who's going to shake up the tree." And it looks like with Benedict's health, he's going to be around for another 10 years, which I think he was, by the way. I think he was around for another, 5 to 10 years. So they literally removed an existing pope and put a new pope in, Pope Francis. And this guy was he was different from the beginning. That's just my opinion. And I pray for him. I pray for this new pope. I hope this new pope proves everybody wrong. I hope he's the kind of guy that brings the church together and doesn't divide it, because I think Francis was a divider. If this guy is just an extension of Francis, we're in for some rough road ahead in the church. Because he's only 69, Bill, and for popes that's young.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. We're talking about things, they interpret things and everything. So interpretations can change with the wind. It's kind of like the shoreline of the Mississippi River, like, hey, be careful walking out onto the banks, because a week ago that was underwater and the water is under there. And a lot of people have done that in the past. They walk out and down they go. They're sunk. They're,
like
they
quicksand.
They get swallowed under and and drift away. I use that analogy just to say sometimes, we interpret things beyond what they are. But, there is some vagueness, and, you really got to think before you do. And, this him meddling in the nations of, well, you should open your borders is do we have to be the first to open the borders and then everybody else does? It's not biblically sound. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it will be interesting to see how this new pope, how he is in the long run, because it's not. Like I said, hope springs eternal, folks. He may be a leftist, and who he comes to his senses as pope. I don't know. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the Pope, but kind of moving on, who else chimed in on this was Nancy Pelosi.
Oh,
you heard what she believes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
She thinks that possibly in her children's lifetime, maybe even during this guy's time, that the next Pope could be a woman.
Listen, in my opinion...
I'm not laughing at
No, I know what you're saying, but this is somebody who's... Now she's putting her 2 cents in as far as theology is concerned.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But let me tell you something. As far as I'm concerned, being the father of daughters and the grandfather of a granddaughter, I would have no problem with women being priests. I think that's I'm not really sure why the Catholic Church isn't all boys club. I know they'll come out with some theological reason like, well, all the apostles were men, but that was a different time, folks. You didn't get a bunch of guys walking around with a couple of women without there being some kind of social issue. I mean, they'd be talking in the neighborhood, if you know what I mean. But so I think to use that as the reason is wrong. Jesus had his reason, I'm sure, and it was probably a very practical one. But Jesus also loved Mary Magdalene and people like that. So I'm thinking that having women in the priesthood wouldn't be a bad thing. It wouldn't be. It works in a lot of religions. It would be.
I grew up Baptist, and we didn't. But then you could step over to I'm not sure if it was Methodist,
Episcopalian, Anglican.
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
Yeah, I attended one of those. I've attended two churches. Just guest there. I didn't join them, but
right.
A Lutheran church where, the lady that was the pastor there, I mean, she became a very, very good friend.
Yeah.
And, and I didn't question anything about her role as
no, she was a good, holy person.
Yeah. So I didn't question.
So maybe
that.
maybe Nancy's going to be right. Maybe that happens.
Or maybe she's telling us something that's coming, because it seems that.
Well, we could get it maybe tomorrow, Bill, on our Saturday show.
Yeah,
we can jump. I know exactly.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with that.
I know exactly where you're going. And on our Saturday show, we unbutton our shirts, so to speak, and we get a little relaxed, and we speculate a lot more on our Saturday program. If you can,
I wear my
imagine.
elastic pants like I'm going to a big steak dinner, because
Yes.
I'll need some extra room for this.
So anyway, we have a new pope, and he's Leo the 14th. And again, I'm going to tell you, I pray for the guy. I hope that he's a good man, and I hope that he is a uniter and not a divider. And we'll just leave it at that. I hope he brings good things to the world.
Well, I didn't know we were going to talk so long to the Pope. I thought we were just going to mention it because.
Well, I'm surprised when we talk a long time. It's such a difficult thing for us to do. Hey, listen.
Like two old men on a park bench.
Yeah,
Yep, I know.
Before we forget, please do us a favor. Like and share our program, if you would, okay? Pam Bondi, we played the cut yesterday. She made a comment on the sidewalk at the White House to some media about Epstein and having 10,000 videos of the guy doing
Tens of thousands.
Awful. I mean, the guy must have never slept. I mean, but anyway, he was a vile animal, apparently. But James O'Keefe came out with a short video yesterday, and listen to this. This is kind of self-explanatory.
Yesterday, Attorney General of the United States Pam Bondi was at the White House and disclosed what she represented as brand new information in relation to Jeffrey Epstein, the existence of tens of thousands of videos featuring little children.
There are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn.
Now, this is the first time an official has publicly acknowledged that videos of Epstein and his victims exist. What you may not know is just 9 days prior, the Attorney General had a very similar conversation with a total stranger in a restaurant.
Do you know when the Epstein files are going to get released?
We hope soon. The FBI has been.
Okay.
So,
any dates?
No, you know what it is? There are tens of thousands of videos.
Yeah.
And it's all with little kids. So they have to go through every one.
In the past, officials have spoken about the, quote, mountain of evidence in the Epstein case. But they've never, previous to that moment, acknowledged on the existence of videos of, quote, little kids. Just a few days later, at 2 p.m. on May 1st, our reporter sent the AG's office the text of the recording. We asked why this detail had not been disclosed to the public, but was instead being told to a random stranger at a restaurant. the Attorney General used almost the exact same language as she did with the stranger in the restaurant, language that we shared with her press office.
There are tens and thousands hitting her.
Yeah.
And it's all with little kids.
There are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn.
Now, we hesitated to publish this story, but believe, like we did yesterday, that the public has a right to know. And this one raises serious questions. On one hand, why did our country's highest law enforcement official share this information first not with the American people, but with a self-described nanny at brunch? But more importantly, why was this information held back in the first place? Does this show that a government apparatus is still working behind the scenes to protect powerful people involved in the scandal? Based upon the response to our Epstein story yesterday, it's clear that the American people want answers, and they want accountability.
That's James O'Keefe, and
Yeah.
I saw the video that he was talking about. I don't think she was a random stranger. I think
No.
she was somebody that Pam Bondi knew, and I don't think that what she said to her was out of place. I mean, the next day she said it in public.
Yeah, I think of a line from a movie. You want the truth, you can't handle the truth. And that is the truth of it. And it's not like they were, per se, hiding it forever. It's how do we sift through all this? Now, the fact that there are little children involved, we know that children are abducted, stolen from their families, forever lost. So let's just say these tens of thousands of videos. Let's say that we've got, 1,000 children out there that have been stolen. And all of a sudden, this information just willy-nilly gets thrown out into the public, and everybody's saying, and then a mother somewhere, overseas or here goes, that's my child that is being ridiculed and thrown and splattered all over the news. There is some delicacy here that's got to be done with this. That level, I would think that you've got to walk over. You got to go through that with a fine-tooth comb there because it's very sensitive.
O'Keefe Media Group. Sometimes I think that they just have to have some sensational story because, well, it's been quiet and we've got to have something out there because that's what we do. We get the gotcha tapes and we get them out there. And I think that's kind of what this is. It's like there's a lull at the O'Keefe Media Group.
They don't care who they screw.
Well, yeah, and so they got this tape of Pam Bondi talking to somebody she apparently knew. Not a random stranger. I think that was a poor choice of words. I think Pam Bondi would say, even if Pam Bondi said, that's my waitress, and I've been coming here for 10 years, and I know her very well, we're friends, to make the assumption that she's a random stranger is wrong. And I don't think that what she said was out of place. There's a lot of tapes that we're going through. There's thousands, tens of thousands of tapes of the Epstein with children, and we've got to make sure that the victims are protected.
And that's a big burden to carry around and keep hidden in your mind, to carry on your shoulders. And let's say that you run into a person that maybe you don't know, but is like-minded, and you just go, I don't see that, what she did there. I don't find that, I don't know. It doesn't bother me that she was upset because she was upset talking about it. Look, here's the deal. There's tens of thousands of tapes that involve these children. She didn't say who they were or what was on those tapes. She just said, there is a bigger mountain of crap to go through than we had ever anticipated. And the gravity of it is so perverse. It's going to take us a while to do this. Now, do we go to the public, and say, well, here it is? They'll say, well, if you got that, spill the beans. No, you've got to weed through it. So that was a subtle confession to say, yeah, it's it is there. It's pretty nasty. This is what we're dealing with. I
But
didn't hear
you know what they can do,
specific
Bill?
details.
They don't have to put the whole batch out at one time. They could do 20 tapes or 20 documents and go through that in an afternoon and blank out all of the victims' names and faces and then release that. Here's batch number 1. Batch number 2 will be coming along in a few days.
How are you going to release those tapes? How are you going to release that to the public?
I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to see the video. I
don't think so either. But the Freedom of Information Act, and all of a sudden, the left to go out there and take
that can be the last.
that.
That can be the last thing.
Whose fault is it?
The videotape could be the last thing.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm saying is people want names. They want to know who was on the plane. Tell me who was on the Lolita Express and how many times they flew it. For real.
The left is trying to go after Trump to say, he might not have been, except for that one trip to hitch a ride from down south up north. But now they're trying to say that he had dalliances, in New York and that he was a pedophile and all of this stuff. They're trying to
do
smear that thing again. Huh?
They're trying to smear him. Understand something. Trump heard that Epstein was trying to solicit one of his employees at Mar-a-Lago, and Trump had him escorted from the property, Epstein, and banned him from ever coming back to Mar-a-Lago. So understand that they can try what they want to try. He's fearless about this. If Trump wanted the Epstein files squashed, he never would have talked about it during his rallies. He never would have made it big. He would have downplayed it all the way along, and he wouldn't be allowing his attorney general to go up there and talk about they're working on those things now. They would have just downplay that, bury it. It's too sensitive. That's not the case. He's allowing them to discuss it. He's allowing them to promise that it's coming along. And I do think that eventually they will issue the documents. What I'm saying is that you don't have to do it in the one fell swoop. You can start out with 100 pages of stuff, which has been censored, and you take out the victims' names and their addresses and whatever, and release it, and you can see the names of the people who were involved. Speaking of Epstein, they asked. Senator Kennedy, John Kennedy, was interviewing Kash Patel. Mm-hmm. And they brought up Epstein. Listen.
Person with a brain and a beating heart.
Yes, sir.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Cash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, John Kennedy talking with Kash Patel yesterday and talking about the Epstein situation. So he said it's the near future. They are very aware that there's a hunger for this information on the part of the public. They want it because guys like Kash Patel and Pam Bondi promised that these things would be released if they ever got into a position. Well, you're in that position, so get on it. Get to it,
Do you think Epstein hung himself?
No. And I think Patel has to answer it the way the official cause
narrative
of death
reads.
Yeah. He can't come out and be a conspiracy theorist now. He's the director of the FBI. That being said, he's probably got some people doing some serious investigating right now. I would, if I were the director of the FBI, I'd tell a couple of my best guys, I want to take you guys aside. I want you to really get the true story on what happened to Epstein. Was it accidental or was it intentional? I think it was. I think he was murdered myself. I mean,
Yeah, I think
if you just go along with what they've told us, the guards who were supposed to be on 24-hour suicide watch suddenly thought it was a good time to go to lunch.
well, they didn't want to catch the suicide flu, because that seems to be an epidemic, with people that might hold key information. They get
Was that
sudden
an
case of
old rock and roll song?
the
Ain't
suicide
no cure
flu.
for the suicide flu.
Yeah, say that 5 times
Yeah.
real fast. Yeah, that might be, the rocket pneumonia and the suicide flu. I
That's
don't
true.
know.
So I do think that there's too many coincidences. He hung himself with his bed sheets. I think that's what they said. And then he told everybody recently that he was looking forward to certain court dates and stuff. He was actually excited about the possibility that maybe he was going to get out. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot going on there.
It was so convenient because, would he have cut a deal, if he could get out, Joe?
What do you think?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
He don't take this wrong, but he'd probably cut a deal, find Jesus, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I think that he would have put him on the witness protection system, just sent him off somewhere, and you wouldn't have seen him again after he had testified against a ton of people who were very important.
Yeah.
And I think that based upon, there's a video going around, boy. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's all, I'm sure, speculation, although you never know. But it shows some people who, in this video, are admitting they were on the list. They're on the Epstein list. And if that video is accurate, there are a lot of people sweating, a lot of people in positions of power and celebrity who are sweating bullets right now.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Well, I don't know. I'm not holding my breath on the Epstein files because, it's probably it's bigger than the Kennedy files. I'm just saying it's.
I still don't think we got everything on Kennedy either. But that's
I don't either.
Let me remind you to please like and share the program. Joe Biden was on The View. It was like a homecoming. He came out and just Whoopi and all those wonderful ladies, those great, that Mensa group that sits there every day and talks about all these different things. They were there talking about how excited they were to see Joe again, and they had some very, very deep questions. Listen.
Well, Mr. President, you had previously said that you thought that you would have won. Since then, Donald Trump won all the battleground states and made inroads with almost every major demographic, from working class voters to Hispanic men to black men. Knowing what you know now, do you think you would have beat him?
Yeah, he still got 7 million fewer votes.
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people didn't show up. Number one. Number two, they're very close in those toss-up states. It was it wasn't a slam dunk, and look, every time I've been on the show, which I've been fortunate to be on more than once. Thanks for having me. Is that we talk? You guys don't focus on as much, and I think it's good on polling numbers. But let me put it this way: he's had the worst 100 days any president's ever had.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And I would not say honesty's been a strong point.
Let me tell you, first of all, that was The View, and they probably can seat about 200 people in the audience. And when they get pretty rowdy, it's pretty loud. You can get a nice... That wasn't that loud. That was kind of a tempered applause. Yay!
Look, the first 100 days, he's done a lot. There has been a lot of nattering from the left, throwing out negativity all over the place. That's what I've heard a lot of. They don't want to talk about Trump's accomplishments. I mean, his tariffs are kicking in. By the way, you might be guilty of insider trading because Trump told you yesterday you might want to go buy stocks on a trade deal that he just did. So I don't think anybody can say insider trading on that thing. But what he's done is working. The things that aren't working are the left judges put in place that want to sit there and stick their foot out and trip every single move he makes.
I want to remind you that in the first 100 days of Joe Biden's presidency, we heard nothing. Nothing. We were told that Joe's still warming up, getting ready. He's loosening up for his presidency. He did nothing in the first 100 days. So that's what maybe he got involved in the Afghan war and screwed everything up there. But the guy was he was useless. But he is out there trying to rejuvenate and revigorate and rehabilitate his reputation. Listen.
Mr. President, since you left office, there have been a number of books that have come out deeply sourced from Democratic sources that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities. In the final year of your presidency, what is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that, number one. Number two, think of what we were left with. We were left with a circumstance where we had an insurrection when I started, not since the Civil War. We had a circumstance where we were in a position that the pandemic, because of the incompetence of the last outfit, end up over 1 million people dying. And we're also in a situation where we found ourselves unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in the interest of time. And so we went to work, and we got it done. And one of the things that
Alyssa, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. I mean, he'd get up, he'd put in a full day, and then at night I'd be in bed, reading my book, and he was still on the phone reading his briefings, working with staff. I mean, it was nonstop. It's the White House. Being president is not like a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a life that you live. You live it 24 hours a day. That phone can ring at 11 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning. It's constant. You never leave it. And Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president. And if you look at things today, give me Joe Biden anytime.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. It's very all well and good, but first of all, there's a floor manager at the View, and the floor manager's job is to turn around at key points and to tell the audience to applaud. Otherwise, they're not going to applaud. They're just going to sit and listen, and depending upon how they want the response to be, they clap. Meaning that if it's a moderate clap, it's polite. Okay, that's like this. If it's, raucous, they tell you how they want you to applaud. And that happens at the View. It wasn't that great, though. I thought that considering it was supposedly amongst a group of left-leaning loons, it still wasn't all that responsive. And understand something, folks. Jumpin' Joe, throughout his whole political career, had a reputation of being a nasty guy. I mean, people don't realize this. They saw him as this tottering old guy, but he was kind of a ruthless senator. He had no problem giving people a bad time. He really wasn't. He wasn't a fun guy to be around. Oh, he had
bad news all the way.
He had $1 million smile. That was the Biden smile. Really got him in places he shouldn't have gotten into. He smiled. It was a great smile.
And everyone with caps.
Oh yeah, all caps too. Well, so
all
was
dental work. And
so was Hunter. Hunter too. Hunter was all
caps. Well, yeah, because of his
drugs.
The crack cocaine problem.
Yeah,
crystal meth that'll eat up your teeth. But Jill lied. Oh, Joe sat up all night reading his presidential briefs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. What, he took his shorts off and read those? Because I'll tell you what.
Those are the only briefs he looked at.
That's right. And when he got up to, I didn't need to get up. I already, I need a new pair of underwear. Anyway, he went to bed so damn early. It was nap time for Joe all the time.
This was a guy who, the only president in my lifetime who actually fell down several times going upstairs. And we saw that on camera. Mark Halperin does a program, I guess once a week, called The Morning Meeting with Sean Spicer and a former Democrat, Dan Turrentine, and they talked about the real reason why Biden is coming out in public again. Listen.
11 o'clock this morning, the Bidens are live on The View here in Gotham City. There's a story in Politico today that says they've hired the former Pentagon spokesperson to manage the Biden comeback. I'm paraphrasing kind of, that Joe Biden wants to be out there. The 100 days is over. He wants to be prepared for the books that are coming out that will be critical of him. He wants to speak out against Donald Trump. He wants to defend his reputation. Politico is also reporting that the audio of the special counsel Hur of his interview with Joe Biden that caused her to judge Biden an elderly man with a poor memory, that the Trump administration is going to release that audio, and that Biden is gearing up to fight back on all fronts. Now, you could say, as we've discussed, Biden's doing this to fight back, or Biden's doing this for his reputation. I talked to someone very familiar with the Bidens, and I think they've pointed out something that I'm going to say now that, to me, is the explanation, or at least part of the explanation, which is Biden Inc. has collapsed. All those Biden grandkids had a lavish lifestyle, which they very much liked. Hunter made hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. Joe, as a former president, is not in a position to get the same kind of paid speeches, corporate boards, book deal. Biden Inc. needs a source of revenue. And Hunter does, even though he was pardoned and he's not going to prison, Hunter does not have great earning capacity. And you look at the rest of the family.
Wait. The paintings aren't worth a lot?
No, the paintings are not worth a lot. So what I'm positing for you guys to weigh in on, Dan first, is my source right? Is what at least part of this is about, is the reality that Biden Inc., the trough is empty. The spigot has shut down. They need a way to get back in the game to make big money, to have the grandchildren fed and clothed and flown first class, etc.
It certainly could be. I think the challenge is at his age, kind of trying to start a new career, so to speak, a new set of endeavors is very hard.
Who else is going to do it, though?
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing, right? His brother's been under FBI, watch now. You've got Hunter's issues. It very well could be. I just think the challenge for him is, in all of these appearances, and I'll add Jill to this, we know what everyone wants to ask him about why he dropped out, about his age, and at least maybe we'll see today something different. He still doesn't have good answers. To
be clear, the irony is, I think he's going to set back the cause of Biden today.
Well, that was going to be my next statement.
Yes, I agree.
I agree. So
I agree. Sean, let me say it this way. Just imagine a normal family, a John Q. Public, the Public family, okay? The Public family at one point, between the patriarch's son and the patriarch's brothers, they were pulling in $10 million a year, maybe more, right? What's Biden pulling in at today? I mean,
to quote the great LL Cool J, don't call it a comeback. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he was ever. I don't think he was ever there. So they're not. I mean, but to your point, I don't know where the grift is over, right? The big guy's not getting his cut anymore, and that's a problem. I get it. They've lived a very lavish lifestyle. The beach house, I got to imagine the property taxes aren't cheap. They're used to a certain lifestyle, but not just them. To your point, the whole family, it was coming from one source, and they lost their USAID funding, basically. Yeah. So this is a problem. I get it, but to your point, I don't see where the new source is. Number one, no one wants to know what he thinks. Number two, he doesn't know what he thinks, and that's a bigger problem. When he goes on The View today, to your point, when I watched that BBC interview, he just set himself back. And you
don't think the Washington Speakers Bureau and CA looked at that and said, "Man, that guy needs to be flown all over the country and the world, giving $800,000 a pop speeches"? No,
I think they looked at him and said, "Hey, We're in the middle of a briefing right now. We're going to get back to you after the company retreat. Like
the family's income has taken not just a hit. It's gone from millions to I mean, I don't know what he's making now. He got that one paid speech, but that's
what, $400,000 a year as a former president.
Right.
Yeah, but it's nothing like that. I mean,
that's a couple months of charisma. That's nothing.
I get it. But and by the way, just to be clear, they're also someone brought up the library the other day on this platform. You have to decide every day what you're spending your time on. Are you trying to put the kids in private school, or are you worried about where the library's going? Because you can't ask for the same thing multiple times. There are probably some people.
And I'm sorry, and just on that point, I've always thought he was going to have trouble raising money for the library because he's not been someone who's never been a good fundraiser, and the donors are not currently in love with him. Right. So that's a whole separate money problem. Right. But for the Biden family. When
they give you your 3 things you're going to do today, you got to figure out number 1 is pay the bills.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to add though, because Mark, you said part of the the Politico story is about how he wants to take on Trump. He wants to, at least based on what he has said so far, he tried to again litigate the economy, that things were great, which is just not how people felt at all.
Right.
He doesn't have good answers, even on substance. Right. Again, I go back to when Trump came back. He talked about inflation. He talked about the images at the border, which were real, and then Afghanistan. He had 3 issues that were in his wheelhouse. Biden is just just sits there and pounds the table things were good. I did well. Right.
In the spirit of bipartisanship, we got an hour and 45 minutes until the View starts.
Yeah,
so, Mr. President, if you're listening, here's the thing. Instead of relitigating the past, how about you make some productive suggestions to the future, like highlighting the young people in your party and saying that they've got the fight, the Frosts and the AOC. I mean, he needs to do something that people actually go, wow, that was actually a good idea. Right. Or you can't keep litigating how dumb the decisions were.
Closing this out, and again, if you have a question, please raise your hand if you're here on the platform. I want serious answers from both of you, not jokes, not hopeless. If Joe Biden called you and you were inclined to help him and he said, Dan, Sean, I need to make more money for my family. I need to leverage the assets I have as a former president to get the spigot going because we need more money. What one piece of advice would you give him of how he can leverage the assets he has to do that? Dan.
I say, sir, what are you most passionate about? What is it that makes you want to get up and make?
He's most passionate about attacking Trump, but that's not going to make him any money.
No, but I mean, if it's foreign, let's pick a subject because you got to believe in it. You got to wipe.
All right, he said NATO. How's he going to make money off of being passionate about NATO?
So I would say then go start your post-presidency focus is going to be on world relations and Europe and taking on Russia. Then set up a concurrent business of companies that have an interest in that. And you can both kind of advise, consult PE funds that want to understand all the different angles of that issue because it affects their business. And then also try to do good, right? You can do both.
Yeah. All right.
You only have a few years.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm not sure that would gestate quickly enough for the grandkids. Sean, what would your advice be to buck rake?
I think there are 2 things. One, I mean, Dan's idea I get, which is maybe set up the Biden Center where you pull in a lot of your former aides and let them do the work and you kind of grift off them. That's something that they could probably get behind. So it's you get all the Jake Sullivans or whatever. I mean, get a bunch of them, create this consortium where you're guiding. I mean, that's number 1. Number 2, potentially start to talk to some of the grandkids about running for office in Delaware, because you probably have some good political capital there, but start to build the next generation of people that can say, hey, the Biden family's still in business. And then number 3 is, I think, start to create this elder statesman view of how do you do what you said you were going to do, pass the torch, highlight the next young people in the party, get seen as someone who doesn't litigate the past but looks towards the future. But I got to be honest with you, this is not an easy one. Yeah. Even if you want to be helpful to say, because part of what, as you know, I mean, you brought this up, the speeches and all this stuff, people pay. They don't want to, they're in a business. And if they can't make 15-20% off a $100,000 speech, it's not worth their time for all of the logistics to go into it. So It's not a simple proposition that he's asking for. I think the other thing is you got to start thinking about leveraging. Jill Biden still, I think, liked on the left by a lot of folks. Can she go out and do some stuff?
Oh, no.
I know.
Mark Halperin and Sean Spicer and Dan Turrentine. Turrentine was a national finance committee chairman for the Hillary Clinton campaign, so he comes at from the left. But even he was saying that it's not going to be easy. I don't think personally that Biden now has the tools to change his image. I think that every time that he gets out there, no matter where it is, no matter what the situation, he ends up mumbling and fumbling, and that just reinforces his ineptness.
Yeah, I don't think he ever had the tools all the way through his career. And why they ran him as president, I don't know. Well, he won by a landslide. Well, no, you cheated. And let's make that perfectly clear that there is a machine out there that the Democrats own. They're using judges to solidify it. If it doesn't quite work the way it needs to go, well, a judge will step in and save the day or correct things for them. Joe was never elected, and he has never been a good politician.
And
never.
It was interesting. Sean Spicer says that a former president makes $400,000 a year. And that may be the case now. They may have changed it during Biden's last year because up until 2024, he would have only gotten $246,400 a year, which is a lot of money, folks. It's like $250,000 a year salary as a retired president. But Spicer seems to think that they got a bump on that, $400,000. Which should
there was a bump a while back on that, but it was probably never put down.
Well, but it should be more than you need to live comfortably for the rest of your life. But, Biden has a mansion in Virginia, a mansion in Delaware. I think he's got a couple of other places that he calls home. Maybe he just has too much upkeep on his. Maybe he should sell some of his houses.
Well, they don't want to do that because, see, here's his problem. When he was in office, he didn't have to be a good politician. He just had to be accessible to people that needed his accessibility, his influence, or whatever it is. So he got money. You call it, deals. Some people might call it dirty money, but a lot of these people do that.
Would you pay him? I heard somebody say $400,000. I heard it on this podcast cut here we just heard. They say $800,000 to have him speak. Have Joe Biden come in and, let's say, do a 40-minute speech and pay him $800,000? Oh, gag me. I mean, the guy...
Oh, Jim, I'd pay you $400,000 before I'd pay him $400,000.
I'd take it, Bill.
And I guarantee that you'd be up there for an hour or longer. We'd have to get the cane to pull you off the stage.
That's true. Get the hook.
Yeah. I got more to say. They're pulling you off the stage. But Joe,
Bill, when he was on the world stage, when he was the president of the United States, nobody cared to hear what he had to say.
I question that. Was he really the president of the United States?
I don't think so. I think he was put in there illegitimately, but that's my opinion. I always hesitate saying that because when we said it a few years ago, we get deplatformed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of things that we did then, we got beat up with the stick. You can't say that. Boom.
I mean, this is America, freedom of speech.
No,
supposedly. But, boy, a couple of years ago, we would say something as simple as what I just said and would be pulled off the air.
How crazy is the left? There's a survey out there now. And apparently, according to a new, Rasmussen poll, 71% of Democrats and 80% of self-described liberals, they believe Elon Musk should be put in prison, locked up, throw away the key because of his work with Doge. You see, they actually believe that it is a crime to try to balance the budget.
Well, I heard a tape from some students from, I believe it was Temple, who were pro-Hamas. and they admitted on this tape that they really weren't there to discuss their position on Hamas. They were there to destroy the United States of America, to bring down our government. That's what they admitted on this tape. And it was it's probably available now. If you go to like Gateway Pundit and go back a few pages, you probably will see the video that I'm talking about. And they come out and say it directly to the camera, like, hey, our real purpose isn't just to protest Israel. Our real purpose is to cause commotion and chaos, cause a divide, and to cause a schism between the two sides and really cause a problem for our government.
And they're doing a damn good job. And, they've ignited a left base out there that used to be just everyday normal people. Even though you may not have agreed with everything that they said politically, we can get along, have coffee together. Hey, you know what? Yeah, I know how you feel about that, and I understand that. It's not how I feel. And that was the end of it. But no, not now. I mean, who was it that was out? Ed Martin doing a interview and on Newsmax? And some liberal there just decides, I don't like this. Spit on him. I'm sorry. But you know what? You spit on me,
you'll be picking up your teeth.
Yeah, you better be running by when you do it, because
well, I missed that one,
Bill. You're not
Bill.
going to know what happened.
Is that recently when Ed Martin was doing the interview? I'd like to see that, boy.
Actually, it's on. I believe they have it on Gateway. There's the story on it, and they have it. I think that's where I saw it.
What's interesting is there's a difference, though, between last year and this year. I point specifically to Columbia University. I don't know that you heard about this. Some students the day before yesterday took over the library. They took over the library, these pro-Hamas students, with their masks. They always have masks because, they don't want to show their faces because, they're students and they might lose their scholarships. But they go in there and they're raising hell and they're writing graffiti on the walls and stuff. And the police locked all the doors to the building, locked them in. And then they said to him, you're not getting out until you show your ID, your student ID. And if you haven't got a student ID, you're going to be in trouble. And I think they said they arrested 80 people. They perp walked them all out in cuffs. This was the difference between this year and 1 year ago. 1 year ago, they had an encampment and they were having it was like party time. This year, they tried to do the same thing, and the school has had enough. They're in jeopardy of losing funding from the federal government, and all of a sudden, they're starting to take campus security seriously and taking into consideration the other students. We see this microcosm of students who are causing a problem over here. You forget that there are still several hundred, maybe a couple of thousand students who are desperately trying to finish their finals and to do the right thing. Maybe some want to graduate this year and they got to finish their finals, and you got these troublemakers wreaking havoc down the hallway. So they finally did the right thing and they arrested the troublemakers. Did you see that, Bill?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that is maybe a sign that things are moving in the right direction, that there's a new sheriff in town. Maybe it's a reflection on the fact that Trump isn't taking any more nonsense either. You better clean up your yard or we're going to pull funding. And they've already done it with Harvard, or they're talking about doing it seriously with Harvard. So I'm not sure. I guess Harvard is protesting that, or they're going to appeal it. And
I'm getting sick and tired of hearing from Harvard and them just reacting to everything. I mentioned Ed Martin. Now he's no longer the U.S. attorney.
Yeah,
I guess he's now the director of DOJ or something like that. He was put in charge of that. But we got a new U.S. attorney in town. It actually interim until it goes through the confirmations and everything. You know who that is, right?
Yeah, Justice Jeanine Pirro.
Yeah, Judge Jeannie.
Yeah,
Jeanine.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what? You talk about somebody, they ain't gonna. Yeah, I'd like to see her in an interview and some woman come up and spit on her and see what happens.
Yeah. Ed Martin, he is going to be, I believe, the director of the Weaponization Working Group, Associate Deputy Attorney General, and the pardon attorney for the president. So he's been given him, he moved him into a good situation. He didn't just let Ed Martin walk away.
No. So,
which seems to be a path, seems to be what Trump does. When somebody's getting a hard time during a nomination process, they move them out and move them into something of equal value, maybe a little better, maybe a little more attractive. If you're wondering what the weaponization of our government, what that is, the Weaponization Working Group, he will be charged with investigating how the government was used to go after American citizens, during like the past administration. That's a pretty, and Ed Martin, by the way, is a pit bull. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but he is a conservative pit bull, and he'll take it seriously. So I think that's good news. I think Justice Judge Janine's going to have. I don't think she's going to have a problem getting in.
No, I think she's got a mouth on her. I mean, I mean that in a good way. I wouldn't try to argue with her. She's going to slap you down. But, Trump makes these changes, and, it's an old thing in business. I remember it in radio. If something wasn't working or we needed to get a little more stronger foothold, you'd stir the pot. You really weren't changing a whole lot, but you're just stirring that pot up a little bit, just give it a new look, a new flavor, and you might change some roles of people, and all of a sudden you're waiting for all the gears to kick in and the machine to get rolling.
We're trying to stir the pot here. We've moved to a new platform, our program has, and we have to kind of revitalize our audience. It's they have to find us again because we've moved to another platform. If you would, take a moment to like and share our program with your friends. Tell them we're here. Tell them what we do every day on this program and help us build our audience.
It's kind of like lighting a torch. You got to let the light shine. So please do like and share.
So Pete Hegseth is in the news. He'll be, I guess, next month kicking out transgender service members, according to a memo obtained by Reuters. And I guess the left has still got their tighty-whities in a knot over that. They still can't believe that he's doing that. I think it's necessary. It is not playtime in the military. The military is not a place to go to do dress up. The military is a place where you go to learn how to break things and to kill your enemy, and for the name of your country. And it's not a place where they should be doing social experiments. And I think Pete Hegseth is someone of like mind, and he's going to remove those people from service. And I think it's important he does so. It's important for morale, folks. When you're in there in the military, you're putting your life on the line. You are saying, I'm committing myself to serve my country in any capacity for the next 2 or 4 years or whatever, but I expect the country to be rock solid in its resolve too, and to act like it's a serious move. And when you have people running around in guys in women's uniforms and pretending that they're something that they're not in the military, that says we're not really serious about this. So Hegseth gets in there and he says, no, we are serious, and we're going to ask those people who have those issues to do so outside of the military. And I think that's important to do that. I'm sure other people have a difference of opinion, but I really believe that. We were talking, Bill, a little while ago about how they've been using the judiciary to attack this administration. And John Roberts was in another, he was being interviewed for some venue, and once again he took the opportunity to talk about it's important that the judiciary be totally independent, which it is not, which, if anything, it is more one-sided and more partial and more partisan than it has ever been. But here's John Roberts sitting up there, and I'm not going to play the tape. It's 30 minutes long. But here's John Roberts in this interview talking about how the judiciary is a great experiment, and then it has to be completely separate from the political comings and goings. It must make a nonpartisan, unbiased review. That's nonsense. This guy has been partisan from the day he got into office. He's been a major disappointment from the day he got into the position of Chief Justice. We were told by Bush, oh, he's a conservative. He's going to be a terrific addition to the Supreme Court. And as soon as he gets in there, he starts disappointing and proving that he really isn't a conservative. If anything, he leans more left than right. And he's very partisan. And you know, people are talking about, to this day, they're saying, why isn't Roberts speaking up right now about what's happening with the judiciary? With all of these district justices coming out and making these asinine rulings, and they're all partisans, they're all Democrats, they're all leftists, many of them appointed by Biden, a lot by Obama, but they're all leftists for the most part. Handful of quote Republicans, but they're rhinos, you know. And so you have this partisan group of people who are messing up the water, and you have John Roberts pretending that they're absolutely neutral. So right. and Bill, I still hear politicians on our side say, and also political pundits say, well, the good news is that when it goes to the higher court, we're fairly confident it's going to be struck down. Well,
that ain't working.
That ain't going to happen. Based upon track records, you know, that probably is not going to happen. They're probably going to, they're not going to surprise me, but they're going to surprise a lot of these pundits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, logically, they should turn around and say, these justices are out of bounds and they can no longer do that. There should be a ruling from the Supreme Court that says you have a jurisdiction and there's a limit to your jurisdiction. You can't do an edict in Des Moines that affects the entire country and the executive branch of office.
Well, we're self-destructing right before our very eyes. And I don't know what the hell's going on with the judicial system.
Yeah, Carrie Lake talked about it recently. Listen.
Joining me now with more on the impact the judicial branch is having on President Trump's agenda is U.S. Agency for Global Media Senior Advisor and former gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake. Carrie, thanks very much for being here.
Good to be with you this morning.
I'll mention one, the April 18th court case requesting an injunction against Trump's April 2nd Liberation Day tariffs was denied. The next court date is May 13th. How would you assess these federal judges trying to stop President Trump's agenda?
Well, they're completely out of control. I mean, they're basically usurping the power of the president. And I've got a district judge who's coming after us and telling us how to run an agency. The president has Article 2 powers to run the executive branch of this government, and we're seeing a whole handful of judges trying to stop that and really subvert the will of the people. In our situation over at U.S. Agency for Global Media, we're trying to modernize it, and we're trying to shrink it down a little bit because of the bloat there. And the federal judge is basically saying you can't do that. You have to hire everybody back, and we hadn't even fired anybody. We put people on leave so we could assess and shrink this agency down. And the beautiful thing about President Trump is he wants to come in and bring this government under control. It's gotten way too big, and now we've got a bunch of judges saying, no, President Trump, you can't do that. The people voted for President Trump, and they're trying to subvert the will of the people here. I don't think it'll work in the end. I believe that eventually these cases will move higher up, and President Trump will be victorious, but unfortunately, it's the delay that's preventing the work from being done. You know, we don't want to get rid of Voice of America. We want to save what's salvageable and maybe get rid of an agency and move things like Voice of America, Office of Cuba Broadcasting, over to the Department of State, where, frankly, the last time when they were under Department of State, they were effective. Now they have not become effective. They've gotten too big, and the president wants to actually shrink things down and get things a little more under control.
Well, it's not just the federal funding, it's also tariffs. I mean, next week we've got multiple tariff deadlines, including the implementation of the 25% tariff on global auto parts, the closing of the China-Hong Kong de minimis loophole, the Office of Management Budget Assessment of the America First trade policy. Are you expecting these cases to go to the Supreme Court?
It's going to have to go there, and I wish we could just skip right over and get to the Supreme Court and get this taken care of. Because in many of these cases, you've got Soros-linked attorneys who are just trying to make some money and delay the president's agenda. And you've got judges who, you know, in many cases may be compromised. We're seeing some of this around the country. Why are they doing this? And so I think it will eventually get to the Supreme Court. My concern, and I believe the concern of the American people, is the delay and the time that is ticking away, keeping President Trump, keeping people like me that he's brought in and hired to do our job. And it's very concerning that judges are behaving this way. I would rather follow the Constitution than a judge who's got an agenda.
That's Maria Bartiromo talking with Carrie Lake. And I think that, in all honesty, I think that they're putting a lot of faith in the Supreme Court doing the right thing in the end. Yeah. And I don't think it's going to happen.
You know, all they want to do is cut it down. And when I say cut it down, bring its budget into line. I mean, there's a lot of money that's just being wasted all over the government. And I sit there and think about, you know, I've worked for companies, and all of a sudden, well, we got new owners. They're coming in, and then all of a sudden, they trim that budget. You know, I can squeal all I want to, but it's their business, and the country, when you bring in we voted in, it's our business. We voted in a president to do something and bring things in line, and he's doing it, you know.
My question, Bill, is, all right, these judges are partisan, they're corrupted, and they're doing things that shouldn't be done. The attorneys that they're working with are backed by Soros, who is truly a villain. I'm amazed that nobody's ever gone after him, you know, legally, but apparently he's so wealthy and so protected that it's useless. It's, you know, you never hear about anything happening. But yet he's done so many things. A lot of the riots that we saw, people said that they were supported by his organization. I don't know. That's speculation on their part, but it seems like they had a lot of resources. You know, they had T-shirts that were pre-printed and signs pre-printed. They had water supplies for their people. They had pallets of bricks that were brought to these different locations for the demonstrations. So they had fresh bricks to throw through glass windows. So
I question his true wealth sometimes, because I look at all the money that he spent, and it almost seems like it's gone beyond his billions of dollars.
He has paid, Bill, supposedly, these demonstrators on a daily basis. They get a salary for doing it.
Yeah, so where's that money coming from? I understand he's got so much money, the interest on it keeps making more money, but I don't think it's quite that easy. There's something bigger here that doesn't, you know, we don't quite
doesn't
see.
Add up. Yeah,
it doesn't add up, and that's what I've noticed. So,
well, I think on tomorrow's show we can talk about these things, because that's what we do on Saturdays.
I like doing
speculate.
That's where I want to go now. But,
yeah,
you know,
I know you do.
Time is running out.
Hey, listen, if you get a moment, try our coffee, will you? It's Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee, a medium blend roast of delicious, delicious coffee, and also available in a decaf form, too, in case you have high blood pressure and can't have the caffeine. It's Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. It's only available in one place, and that's rightsideshop.com. Right Side Shop, all one word, rightsideshop.com. And you'll see it right there along with other things, things that my cohort in crime calls swag.
I love swag.
He loves swag. Yeah, it's cups and hats and T-shirts and stuff like that. But Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee is there. You should try it, maybe buy a bag for a liberal friend down the street, so they might be converted with a simple cup of coffee. You never can tell. Oh, I understand now what you're talking about. Do you like that coffee? Yes, I do. That's Right Side Coffee. Oh, that's Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. Oh, I feel much better. I feel much different now. Yes. I'm going to vote for Trump next time.
Well, it does do that. Yeah, you know, we sow the seeds of voting Trump inside every cup of coffee.
That's true. So next, give it to your liberal relatives, and do it just before Thanksgiving so you can have a calming Thanksgiving
Jim,
dinner.
I have to ask you, did you ever watch the movie The Exorcist?
Have I?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
Remember the little girl? Her head spun, and
the pea
green
soup
stuff came out of came out of her body, and all.
You know that was pea soup. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I know that. Well,
behind the scenes,
it's the same effect when a liberal drinks right side coffee.
Really?
Oh yeah,
their head spins 360 and they spit green stuff.
Yeah, it's really embarrassing. It really is, and it's hard to get out of the carpet.
You have to get a priest in there to exercise them.
I don't know many priests that want to take that job.
No, I agree. Anyway, try Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. By the way, we have Juan Jose and the Border Crossers. They're internationally known, basically, for being on this program, and they're here right now to sing our jingle.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Oh, they do a great job. Juan Jose and the Border Crossers. They're still here, and they still haven't been caught. ICE still hasn't made an appearance. I say the word ICE, Bill, and they start to sweat. You see it.
Yeah, I don't blame them, But, I'll be honest about Right Side Coffee. It doesn't do all that stuff I said about, making green things or anything like that.
It doesn't.
No. I was fibbing on that, but it does make your hair grow. It'll make you slim and svelte, and for ladies, you'll have a voluptuous body after 2 or 3 cups.
And he's not lying.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, I'll settle for this. It's a delicious coffee.
Well, that's good. That is truthful. Give it a shot. Try it for yourself. It's at rightsideshop.com. So, Bill, tomorrow we're going to talk about our different ideas about what's happening, maybe do some conspiracy theory stuff, because we like to do stuff like that.
Well, it's also the weekend, and, the left somewhere around, they're actually doing it right now. They're teeing up. They're teeing up on Judge Jeanine, that she's just a distraction, and, it's they attack everybody and everything. But there's other things playing in the news that...
you see with this, there was a federal judge on Wednesday. He ruled a military plane deporting illegal aliens from Asia to Libya violates his court order. It was reported late Tuesday evening that the Trump administration would be deporting illegal aliens from Laos, Vietnam, and the Philippines to Libya. Anti-American illegal alien advocacy groups scrambled and got a judge named Brian Murphy, who was a Biden appointee. Well, there's a qualified guy. Yeah. A Biden-appointed judge in Maryland to halt the plane. My question is, this guy seems to be, his jurisdiction seems to extend to Vietnam and Laos now. I can see where judges say, well, my jurisdiction is Texas or California. That's still within our country. But this guy figures, well, the sky's the limit, and so is Laos and Vietnam. So he's trying to get a court order that he issued in Maryland to apply to an airplane that is flying illegals from Laos and Vietnam.
I don't know. I tend to say his rulings violate common sense, and that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. But you know what? What is common sense, Bill? Common sense is to listen to our program every single day, Monday through Saturday, right here on your favorite streaming device, whatever that is. And whatever you're listening to right now, come back.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of them. We've got, Spotify. We got Podbean still out there. We've got, Amazon. We've got Apple. It's all there, Podchaser, Podplayer, or whatever it's called. Yes. There's so many, I can't keep up with them. But because we changed the platform, they've all got a reset. And so, just keep up with that. You'll find us. We'll be there. And share us with your friends. We do appreciate that. One thing we might have an update on tomorrow.
What's
we
that,
don't
Bill?
know exactly where, but that Soviet rocket that was built to withstand re-entry, so it's not going to break apart because it was built during the Cold War. It got up there and it had a rocket. It failed in its launch, so it got into a forever
suborbit.
orbit.
Yeah.
But now it's finally going to play out and come crashing down on Sunday to a place I don't know, and something that big, and apparently weighs 1,400 pounds. I mean, I didn't go and Google
That's
it.
going to make a mess in the neighborhood.
That's going to make a big hole, you know.
Yeah. Hey, why do I feel nervous now? It's like, yes, folks, it's a big planet, but I feel like it's aiming at me.
Yeah. Well, you know, I got one fear in life.
What's
I only
that?
have one fear in life, and
What's
you know
that?
what it is. I joke about it all the time.
What's that?
You know, I sit there and go, well, you know, a lot of things can take me out, but it's going to be blue ice from a plane. I never thought about a rocket ship coming down.
Close enough for government work.
Yeah.
I know.
Is it blue? I don't know, you know.
Well, now that I'm feeling uncomfortable about everything, it's going to be I'll be looking up all day Sunday. Is that thing?
Yeah, well, I'll be in therapy. I don't know.
The
I'm
good
kidding.
news, I think, is that our planet is 70% water, so it has much greater odds of landing in the ocean than it does hitting your house. But that being said, I don't win the lottery. I don't win a lot of things, but I'll probably be the guy whose house it hits this time around. Oh, my God. Hey, listen, Bill, without any further ado, if you would, take us out of here.
All right, I'd be happy to. Until next time, hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
This is CRN America.